Growing up, we've all heard it in one form or another. And as adults, we may not be drinking it as much, but milk is an essential part of the Indian diet. From ghee to dahi to paneer and chas come the summers. But this food group has become pricier and pricier. In fact, in just the last 1.5 years, milk prices are up a whopping 15 rupees. This has been the fastest rise for milk prices ever. To put it in comparison, milk prices rose by merely 10 rupees over 8 years. And then the tide changed. So what really moved these prices? Is it a case of covering of losses from the cursed COVID period? Is it the soaring cost of fodder? Or is there a shortage of supply that is just not simply seasonal? And why is the government for the first time in over a decade looking at potentially importing dairy products? The Morning Brief team, or Team TMB, travels through the dairy ecosystem to get the answers. From dairy farmers,
if that animal was producing, say, 15 liters, today it's just producing 10 liters, maybe 8 liters. So suddenly, production cost of per liter milk goes up, which has had a major impact on the increase in the price rise for milk.
To daily distributors,
उसके वजह से रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बढ़ गई है, ट्रांसपोर्ट बढ़ गया है, लेबर की कॉस्ट बढ़ गई है, तो ऑटोमेटिकली रेट बढ़ जाती है.
From startup summarize,
whenever there is a drop in milk procurement, first thing is they will stop producing value-added products. They go off the ship. Come summer, I'm telling you, curd will be sold at the prices of gold.
To the veterans of the industry,
because of summer, where production is 25% lower than the winter in milk, I don't foresee price of milk going down till next Diwali.
It's Friday, April 7th. I'm your host, Anupriya Nair from The Economic Times, and you're listening to the Milky Way Inflation on the Morning Brief. Well, when you talk about milk, you've got to talk to Amul. Fellow TMB host Ratna Bhushan quizzed Jayan Mehta, the new managing director at Amul, about the ferocious price hikes and what's driving them.
You look at over a period of last 3 years, 4 years. So there, it's not as high as it is perceived out to be. Okay, there were 3 times we increased the price in last 1 year, which is a fact. But then over if last 4 years, it's only 6 times. So 6 दूने 12 रुपए 3 साल में बढ़े, जो main item थे. So it's not as large. Second, this year it was imperative because the milk is an agriculture-related product. It's not directly for agriculture, but उसमें क्या होता है? The cost of feed fodder makes a lot of difference in the cost of production. तो जो inflation consumers को hurt करता है, वैसे producers को भी hit करता है. So our way of looking at it, and since we represent economic times, inflation to consumers is income to the producers. There is no other way you can compensate the producer for the cost of the produce. I mean, ठीक है, value addition is one way which we do. But value addition के साथ साथ अगर आपको कुछ भी करना है और वो काफी some high shocks are for the producers much higher. कि मानो unseasonal rains, crop failure, monsoon failure, whatever. So then there is a sudden spike in the cost, which is not reflected in the top line inflation numbers. Feed fodder के भाव बढ़ गए, जो पूरा जो हम लोग बोलते हैं, वो जो पहले 5, 7, 8 रुपए किलो था, वो मानो 14, 15 रुपए हो गया. तो उसको तो गाय को तो आपको रोज खिलाना पड़ेगा. गाय दूध देती है या नहीं देती है, खाना तो रोज खिलाना पड़ेगा उसको. तो और प्लस जो इनपुट कॉस्ट है, which we can measure, is the cost of cattle feed we manufacture. तो cattle feed has multiple ingredients like de-oiled rice bran, फिर rice de-oil cakes है, फिर उसमें maize है, उसमें molasses है, तो ये rapeseed cakes हैं, extractions हैं, तो वो सब की जो tradable चीज होती है ना, तो उसके भाव भी continuously बढ़ रहे हैं. तो हमारा उसका भी cost हम index देखते हैं, जो ये ऐसी green fodder, dry fodder, उसका भी देखते हैं. Generally inflation consumers को जो urban feel करता है, rural families हैं, वो भी for producers हैं, तो उनको भी असर होता है. तो ये सब फैक्टर कैलिब्रेट करके हमको वी हैव टू टेक ए कॉल. बट वी सी इफ यू सी अ लॉन्ग टर्म ट्रेंड आल्सो, द मिल्क प्राइस इंक्रीज इज ऑलवेज इन लाइन विद इन्फ्लेशन. वी नेवर ट्राई टू गो अबाउट दैट.
So then are the milk prices just playing catch up? Well, recent figures now show that retail inflation in milk rose 9.6% in Feb, which was vastly outpacing the headline figures for WPI as well as CPI. So obviously there is a missing piece to the puzzle. Basic economics taught us that price is simply a function of demand and supply. So we traveled to where the supply is and asked local dairy farmers the behind the scenes on milk supply.
कोविड के बाद गाय भैंस कम हो गई थी और दूध भी कम दे रही थी। अब मार्केट में दूध की डिमांड बढ़ रहा है, पर हम जैसे छोटे फार्मर के पास इतनी जल्दी दूध बढ़ाना आसान काम नहीं है। ऊपर से खर्चा भी बहुत बढ़ गया है।
That was Mansoor Ali, a small-scale dairy farmer that provides milk to his Zilla distributor. But this problem of milk shortfall is not restricted to small-time farmers. I spoke to Prabhu Guthi, founder of Talegaon Farms, a ghee and paneer provider that works with farmers to create a value chain of dairy products. Prabhu signals that the shortfall is widespread and affecting some of the biggest procurers in the country as well.
The procurement, especially in Bangalore or Karnataka, is 10 lakh liters down a day. Even now, there is a big fight for fat, as in like Nandini has stopped selling ghee outside of Karnataka. So that means during COVID, what has actually happened is, first of all, producers didn't get the right price. Milk was being procured, but at maybe half the price. At that point in time, butter prices were maybe 280, 240 rupees a kilo. Now, butter is trading at 420. So because of the reduction in prices, farmers cut down on the herd size. The other thing is everything was disrupted during COVID. Water was not available. Animals didn't give like good milk. Because of all this, there was a significant reduction in milk production. Now the demand has gone up, right? But there is no milk.
Well, farmers reduced the induction of new cattle and also reduced the maintenance of their current cattle due to the rising cost of fodder. Bhusa or cattle feed prices are now the highest in nearly 10 years. In some areas, they've risen over 200% in the last 2 years. And that has led to not just price pressures, but also pressure on quality and quantity of milk being produced. Milind Sharma, CEO of Revnar Foods, who runs her own captive dairy farm outside Delhi, explains that you can't just blame Ukraine or COVID for it all.
I cannot really blame it on COVID that the fodder price has gone on. There are many other factors that have been, leading to this. But yes, the fodder price, the dry matter price that we give, what we call Bhusa, that has gone up. See, like if we take, for example, if I just consider an apple and I take out one slice of the apple to eat, okay? That slice is the amount of land which is dedicated to fodder in the country. Just one bit off from the whole agricultural land. That has been just deteriorating, and the grasslands are also no more there where we could, gochar bhumi bolte hain, where these cows could go for grazing. So that definitely has had an impact on the milk yield and the general health of animals. And animal is not a machinery that I say today it's expensive. I will not put in the oil today and I'll buy it some other day. I have to buy it even today and I have to supply it.
Feed cost, which is more than 50% of the cost of production of milk, has seen an increase in prices from say about 8 rupees a kilo to about 20 rupees a kilo. And it's an open secret that India has a significant chronic fodder deficit. Typically, the shortfall is about 12% for dry fodder, 30% for green fodder, and 36% for concentrated fodder as per reports. And as Milind was explaining, the area under cultivation for fodder has been fast disappearing. And Prabhu Guthi of Talegaon Farms says this is a long-term problem that needs immediate looking at.
We haven't had enough production to make enough cattle feed. And I think that's one of the biggest challenge for dairy industry. Like, how do we feed, the cattle? And how do we feed them well? Because if there is no feed, the production comes down. So instead of supplying 350 liters of milk, a farmer would end up supplying only 250 liters, for the same amount of effort, time, energy, everything. So his cost of production goes up significantly. And this is a challenge.
There was another challenge that farms across India faced even as COVID receded: the lumpy skin disease, a highly contagious viral disease spread by vectors such as mosquitoes, biting flies, and ticks that usually affected host animals like cows and water buffaloes. This impacted over 1 lakh cattle, and Milind Sharma, who specializes in cattle care at her farm, says that it was not just hurt by numbers, but quantity and quality of the milk produced that has taken a big hit and possibly permanently.
There, a viral infection the cattle faced, lumpy skin disease, that has affected the milk yield, the general health of the animal. And, in easier terms, I could just say it is just like COVID. We are still not very sure what all effect that will have. Even the scientists, the doctors, the veterinarians, they've just seen the superficial effect or the effect that is visible to our eyes. That what the lumpy skin disease does. Lumps are formed, they burst open. It's actually being caused by a virus. But the moment that lump burst opens and an open wound is there, that can lead to a secondary bacterial infection. And that secondary bacterial infection can be fatal. That can, lead to the death of the animals, and which we all experienced last year was a big, big number of what we call pashudhan that we lost in the country. Now, what the veterinarians told me that there could be swellings internally in the body being caused by this LSD. There could be swelling in the nodules inside, which could cause to lameness, which could cause to any internal swelling in the internal organs, which we are still not really aware of. And this also led to high fever. The moment an animal comes in a disturbed state, like of fever or of lethargy or any other trouble, pain, so naturally the body stops producing the milk. It starts putting all the energy towards the other area, towards the wound to heal it faster, towards the rest of the body to heal faster. So the milk production goes down. Now, in any other case, my experience, what I have seen that if the viral takes place in animals also, but that could normal, I'm not talking about the lumpy skin right now, just any viral fever like it happens in us. In that 1 day of fever, in another 3-4 days, once they are back down to normal, the milk yield goes back up again. It reaches to its normal again. Sometimes it takes 10 days, sometimes 15 days, but they come to their caliber, they come to their level. After lumpy skin disease, even if the animal survived well, we could pull them through. They were okay after 10-15 days. But the milk which had fallen down, that did not come up even after the next calving. We had expected that it will fall down now. Okay, 5-6 months she was supposed to have been milking with this delivery, with this calving. She'll dry up. When the next baby will come, she will come back to her level of milk production, which has not happened in the cows which have been affected by LSD. If that animal was producing, say, 15 liters, today it's just producing 10 liters, maybe 8 liters. So suddenly, production cost of per liter milk goes up, which has had a major impact on the increase in the price rise for milk.
And as we enter summertime, which is not a high milking season for cattle, the supply gap is likely to widen. You may be wondering, though, there is no milk shortage for you and me right now. Our daily delivery has not been hampered. So who is really being affected by this lack of milk? Prabhu warns that if chas and dahi are on your grocery list regularly, this summer may give you some rude shocks.
First things, whenever there is a drop in milk procurement, they will stop producing value-added products. They go off the ship. I mean, I don't see such a big crunch that, we will say it's going to get too much of adulteration, etc. in place. But yes, there are people who have actually stocked up a lot of SMP, right, which is skim milk powder. So people might use, skim milk powder, especially the bigger dairies in the country. They might use SMP to get milk back into circulation. So that will happen. But see, now that adulteration is always an issue. I know even the government is, going hammer and tongs so that doesn't happen, because that is more problematic than anything else. First thing is all these value-added products go off the shelf, right? So for example, we might not get so much curd. Curd will, come summer, I'm telling you, curd will be sold at the prices of gold, because, that is the first thing, that will take a hit. There will not be chas, the buttermilk, there will not be curd. These are the things that will go off shelf. And then, if we are still not able to meet the demand in milk, you will have SMP being used to make milk.
SMP or skim milk powder, which is usually put in production when milk is in abundance to tide over low production season, may be the savior for milk. But stocks of ghee and butter are already falling fast. Animal Husbandry and Dairy Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh was quoted saying that the government may look at importing butter and ghee, a first in 10 years. and importing will also come at a price, adding to the bill of the consumer. But Mr. R.S. Sodhi, the former managing director for Amul, argues it's something that the growing demand can manage.
Based on the cost of production of milk, price increase can happen. All dairy companies are concerned that we keep increasing the prices, we are going to impact consumer demand in the long term. So I think this price is affordable. It is not going to impact the consumer demand. But in future, if we try to increase further, it will impact the consumer demand. Because like I mentioned, this increase has happened last 3 years, not in last 15 months.
But consumer demand is already being hit. A survey by Local Circles shows that 4 in 10 Indian households have either cut down on quantity, shifted to lower-priced alternatives, or stopped buying milk at all. And the full extent of the price hikes may not be over. The MRP on your milk packets are expected to boil over this summer.
Because of summer, where production is 25% lower than the winter in milk, I don't foresee price of milk going down till next Diwali. So feed and fodder costs will definitely reduce next 6 months, but that impacts come during next season. It is not like that today feed cost increase, milk price has to be increased immediately. By that time it translates, there is a lag time. Because once you price increase feed, farmer will feeding less. So the milk production will reduce in after a few months. Or they will not induct new animals. Or they will delay calving. So all this gives results after 5, 6, 9, up to 1 year.
And the larger hit comes to dairy startups that are in the value chain and are not operating with the volumes or margins that provide deep comfort. And if you think with coming down of fodder prices, milk and cheese will get cheaper, think again.
So we can't simply go on increasing the prices every 2 months, especially when we are making something like ghee, right? So now tomorrow if I say, okay, we are increasing the ghee prices by 10%, people will ask, right, that had happened only 6 months back. But when there are, like, say, for example, the milk prices or the butter prices goes up by 3 times in 6-8 months, of course we get it. We feel the brand more than anybody else. And for a brand like Amul, it's very easy. All they have to do is put out on a paper saying, okay, milk prices have gone up by 2 rupees because the procurement prices have gone up by 2 rupees, right? And milk, somebody like Amul or Nandini, they are mostly milk-based players, right? So for them, 90% or 80%, most of their revenues, most of their outflow is all milk. For a brand like ours, it's mostly value-added product, and definitely we gonna take the hit. And never it has happened that Amul would say, okay, we've now we are paying less to the farmers. Let's reduce the price of the retail price of the milk. It never happens. Even Amul wouldn't have increased its butter prices or ghee prices so often, or it doesn't increase. Maybe they take a price raise once in 6 months or whatever, right?
The verdict is clear. With stagnant supply, soaring feed prices, and a rising cost of maintaining cattle, milk is the new white gold and a precious commodity. So if you were looking at the milk price hike in the same manner as one treats the aloo pyaz ka bhav going up, think again. This isn't seasonal and it definitely may not be temporary. 5 decades after Operation Flood, with demand soaring and supply stagnating, it may be time for the world's largest milk producer to make stage for another white revolution. You've been listening to the Milky Way Inflation with me, Anupriya Nair, here on The Morning Brief, brought to you by the team at Economic Times. Credits to the team that helped put this together. A big shout out to Ratna Bhushan for all her inputs, producer Sumit Pandey, and sound engineer Rajas Nayak. Executive producers Anirban Chaudhary, Arjit Burman, and myself. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and you can follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for listening.